Hello, everybody. I'm Phil Brandt, President and CEO of AIM Employers Association, and welcome to This Week at Work.
Hey, This Week at Work is the only show about the workplace that offers you front row seats and a microphone featuring experts in human resources and employment law to bring you practical, timely, and accurate insights so you can more effectively lead your organization. It's Thursday, March 7th, episode 269. Today, we demystify AI through the eye of a tech guy. That's right, there's nothing to fear. Artificial intelligence is here. So we're calling all HR professionals, employers, heck, anyone with a heartbeat. This episode explores the unconventional methods of LLMs and other new tech apps in a way that is approachable and easily accessible. Tech startup founder and AI guru Tyler Kessler joins us, leading up to his keynote at AIM's Wayfinder event, bringing us insider knowledge on the transformative potential of ChatGPT and other time-saving AI. All this and more on This Week at Work.
All right. Good morning. Welcome back, everyone. I'm happy to be here. Things are busy, no doubt. It's that time of the year when we're getting ramped up and everything is in full swing. I can tell you some really good news. The AIM Leadership Conference is once again sold out. So if you didn't get your tickets, I apologize for that. There's nothing I can do to create more seating availability. However, you can still register and put your name on the waiting list. Every year, there are a few people who change their mind and travel impairs their ability to attend. And we just go to the waiting list and get in order. So I would encourage you still to do that. Every once in a while, we're able to still accommodate a few late comers. But that's exciting that it's sold out. It's going to be a great program as well. I also want to say good morning to Justin, our friend Justin Allen. Happy to have him back on the program, joining us from Indianapolis. Good morning, Justin. How are you today?
Good morning, Phil. I'm doing well here on a gray Thursday in Indianapolis, but glad to be back with you again.
Yeah, I think we got a lot of grayness over the Midwest here. Tyler coming to us, Tyler Kessler, who's going to be joining us at our upcoming Wayfinder event on March 15th at the factory here in St. Louis. That will be a live event only. We will not be streaming that event. Tyler is joining us from Orlando, Florida. I'm going to guess you got a little better weather down there in Orlando, Tyler. Good morning.
Yes, nice and sunny. Thank you, Phil. Thanks for having me.
Great. I look forward to getting into some conversation with you about your upcoming event. But first, let's get into some poll questions before we get things kicked off. First is, how would you rate your AI detector? Tyler's going to talk to us about AI and give us some insight into his presentation at the Wayfinder event. And I'd like to understand from you is, how would you rate your AI detector? And then the second question we have is, how have you educated yourself on the use of AI in your role, right? So we want to know a little bit about, how have you come up to speed on AI? We know everyone's using it. We know those people coming out of school use it just like they would any other tool that might be in their toolbox. What have you done to educate yourself? And if you haven't done anything yet, get to the Wayfinder event, and that will be maybe a great step to start your education process. And then the final one is an open-ended question. AI is to HR as blank is to blank. You can have some fun and creativity with that. AI is to HR as blank is to blank. And I can tell you the HR industry is definitely under the thumb of AI for sure. All right. Let me take a breath and get ready to pull that lever, Nick. Justin, are you ready?
I am. Let's do it.
All right, Nick, pull that lever, buddy.
All right, it's time to look into what's trending in employment law. Lawyer, you're on the clock.
All right, guys. So a couple of quick updates on things developing at the federal level. On Monday, the EEOC sent its proposed new guidelines on workplace harassment to the White House for review, which is one of the final steps that will need to be taken before this thing moves forward into being published and becoming effective. As many of the viewers here may recall, the EEOC is in the process of updating and consolidating its guidelines on harassment. The EEOC's existing harassment guidelines are quite old, stretching back into the late 80s and into the 90s. And it's also scattered throughout a number of different documents. So one of the EEOC's goals here is to clean up the issue by consolidating the guidance into one sort of omnibus document. And the result will be a large harassment guidance document for employers that provides some really good practical guidance on what the EEOC views as the law and what kinds of things employers can be doing to comply. The guidance is intended not really as a change in the law so much as a incorporation of more recent developments in this space. We've had a lot happen in the last 30 plus years since some of this guidance has been put into place. You've got the Me Too movement. You've got the Bostock decision extending Title VII protections based on sexual orientation and gender identity. So we expect this guidance is going to incorporate a lot of that discussion. This has been a significant priority for the current EEOC regime. The new guidance was unveiled in the fall, and it received almost 40,000 public comments, and it's moved fairly quickly towards adoption. And so we expect sometime in the next few months that this is going to move forward to becoming, the effective guidance on this issue.
Justin, for anyone that hasn't taken a chance to read all that yet, we usually leave that up to our good friends at Ogletree to give us some insight and guidance. I'm assuming that's going to be heavily weighted with education and training and those types of things as part of the new guidance, where today it's not so specific unless you're in a state that does require, some specific, does have some specific legislation around it. On a federal level, it's a little ambiguous of when and how you must do the training. Is that something that's buried in this that might come out and be new for employers?
Yeah, there's some good proactive guidance on what employers can be doing in order to comply. Certainly training and understanding what your obligations are. And I think it's important to note that this is not a huge change in the landscape for employers. And I would consider this to be more of a house cleaning and general cleanup of, the EEOC's guidance on these issues. The harassment standards are still going to be the same. The same kinds of issues are going to be coming up, but there's a lot of really helpful modern world examples that are in there for what is and isn't harassment. Things like, social media, virtual workplaces, the interplay of those with the workplace. Some of the more modern challenges that are faced by employers are dealt with in this guidance. And so it's not a paradigm shift in the law. It's not going to impose, all these new obligations on employers. It's more of an update to what already exists. Because Phil, I hate to tell you this, and it may come as a surprise, but the 80s and 90s were several decades ago now. So,
are you taking a dig at my gray hair there, Justin?
I certainly would not on an employment, discrimination type issue. But it's hard to believe how long ago the 80s and 90s were. Sometimes, we're dealing with guidance that's 30 plus years old. So this is really intended to bring those up to speed and bring them more into the modern workplace.
Right. Great. Okay. What else you got for us, Justin?
Another issue that's been percolating for several months is the DOL's proposed legislation on worker classification, independent contractor status. And that's set to take effect next Monday. So if you have independent contractors in your workforce, you need to be thoughtful about that. It's right around the corner now. And I think Bert has covered this before, so I won't go into all the details, but the big takeaway is that it will be harder for companies to classify workers as independent contractors. And it takes us back to some of the prior standards that existed before some of the changes a few years ago. It's no surprise that this rule is facing challenges. Independent contractor designation is one of those issues that tends to swing back and forth on the pendulum with changes in administrations. And so this week, a group of Republican lawmakers introduced legislation under the Congressional Review Act that seeks to overturn the DOL's independent contractor rule. This isn't the first time we've seen Congress use this law to try to attack regulations. In fact, 9 CRA resolutions have already passed Congress under President Biden's tenure, and they've all been vetoed. So we don't expect that this is going to, this particular resolution is going to change anything. But what's important to know is that there's also legal challenges to this DOL rule, and there's a number of them throughout the country that are seeking to enjoin the enforcement of it and prohibit the DOL from enforcing it. So those, I think, are the bigger thing to watch out for in this space. It could very well be that this goes into effect, and then in a few weeks or a few months we get a an injunction in place or a ruling that says that the DOL can't enforce it. And that will obviously throw things into a little bit of a regulatory upheaval.
Right. So that once again is going to kind of position that HR professional and business leader to, have to make a decision. We know this goes into effect on Monday. There's nothing yet in place that stops it and tells us to do nothing. But then again, there may be some halting after things are in place from an enforcement standpoint. So you're kind of stuck. What do I do? I think the best advice we can give is to follow the rules that go into effect as of Monday. Even though the enforcement on this is being challenged currently.
Yeah, that's certainly the advice that I think we will give, to clients who are facing this kind of issue. Unless and until something changes, I certainly wouldn't rely on congressional, any congressional action to not take actions to comply with this. And it may be a little bit before we get any kind of injunction or ruling, if one comes at all. So I think the safest thing to do is to comply and to plan to comply with the new rule once it rolls out.
Right. So if you have questions, concerns on that, you can give Justin a call. You can call Bert. Well, you can call our AIM hotline, and we'll be able to give you guidance on those things and help you navigate those troubled times. It's not necessarily always easy and cut and dry, but again, that's why we're here and we're talking about it and making resources available to you for that. All right, Justin, we appreciate that. We're going to get into a conversation on AI here with Tyler, and I invite you to stay a part of that if you're interested. Bert is usually our intelligent one of the group. I don't know that I would say he's artificial in any way. I know my intelligence is very artificial. I did use ChatGPT to get into the conversation with Tyler. Tyler is always out there in his mind space, and it's somewhere different from me, but I love talking to individuals like Tyler because it helps me become more aware of what's really going on around me, as sometimes I do find myself with blinders on and I'm focused in my own space. And I liked the poll question that we had where we had it as some blanks, right? Like AI is to HR, and some of the chat that we're seeing here, Tyler, I'm going to use this to kick it off. AI is to HR as cheese is to cheeseburgers. I like that. And AI is to HR as air is to breathing. And I think that those are probably very true statements, because when I hear about AI in the workplace, where I hear about it being pointed to and called out in the workplace is in the HR field. I mean, the HR field is sitting right in the middle of AI, traditionally because we are saying things like it can be biased. The EEOC has opinions on it, and that's creating the news. So Tyler, let me just kick it off with you and a question with you. AI is here. It's not going to be avoided. What simple advice do we have for management professions, business professionals who yet are to adopt AI in the workplace?
Well, thanks, Phil, for having me. AI is a lot of things, and it's been here for a while. I think what we're all now, AI is having its moment right now with GPTs, but as of 15 months ago, right? So the toughest thing for people to do is to just start using it. And I'm talking about ChatGPT just because it's the market leader right now. There are others, of course, but GPT does have the best answers and the fastest response time, easiest interface for anyone to pick up. So if you haven't used it yet, I strongly recommend you do it, just because the future workforce is going to, it's an end game tool. Every kid in school today needs GPT to get things done, just like when the calculator came in to replace the slide rule. It's really no different. It's just navigating AI is tough because things change so quickly week by week over the last 15 months, really. It's just exploded.
Yeah, so I think I like that example, right? When I was in school, and Justin quickly pointed out, it was the 70s and the 80s for me. When I was in school, you could not bring a calculator to school, right? In fact, I mean, I couldn't even afford a calculator at the time. That was not an inexpensive purchase, right? That was a a leading edge technology to me. And that was not allowed. I went to Catholic schools. The nuns would not allow you to use a calculator. And maybe for my own good to learn how to do, you know, my timetables and addition, subtraction, that stuff. But today, every kid in school is using AI in ways that we're not necessarily applying it yet at work. In fact, they get to work and they're told you can't use it, don't use it. What is it
Right.
that creates that fear from your point of view?
Well, I mean, the fear I think goes back to what you're talking about with the headlines are just reminding us about how scary AI can be or how wrong it can be with its biases. I mean, this is a true form of intelligence, and all intelligence has some form of bias, just like humans do. And we really just need to navigate week by week, month by month, the evolution of the technology and how we can apply it to our business operations or even just our daily lives. So, well, I can't emphasize this enough. You just got to use it to understand what kind of responses you will get so that you know when to use the tool and how to use it correctly, because it can't do everything today. I mean, it's 2024 and wait a year and it's gonna keep continuing to blow our minds.
But
So
as you and I were talking in the pre-show, it's like, but don't wait a year to learn to use it. Like we're going to have
oh
to
no,
evolve with this technology, or you're going to struggle maybe to get caught up, or you're going to miss opportunities to advance your organization.
exactly. It's like any other compliance thing. It's going to always be evolving and always changing, and the companies are going to have to adapt with it, and then the AI will adapt back to the companies. And if you don't stay on top of it, you're going to get lost in it. I mean, it's a huge world out there right now with AI, all the different startups, and you see the AI ecosystem. It's every day there's a new AI startup looking to change how we work.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And okay, so when is a good time to use AI and maybe a time not to think about AI as a useful tool?
Well, I think the biggest concern with most companies and people personally is just privacy. Is what information do you want to be giving these cloud service-based GPTs? And when it comes to, financial data or personal information, that's the time not to use it probably, unless you're really comfortable giving all your information to the big tech companies. But really, when it comes down to content creation, it's killing it at content creation. If you just have the best example I could give you is whenever you want to use Google, try GPT
Yeah.
instead.
I think that's a great piece of advice because I do find myself going to GPT more and more for things I might have otherwise Googled, right?
Exactly. You might
Yeah.
you might save yourself a few steps. You might get an answer that you weren't expecting, but just more time in the prompt text field and just interacting with it is going to help the average person just understand its capabilities because everyone's unique circumstances are going to have unique AI solutions to it, and that's the
Hmm.
tough part about it. But I think we all write emails.
Yep.
I think we all from time to time will look up a recipe, and GPT will just create a recipe
Yeah.
that tastes good. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I mean, you could be the next one to post your recipe on your social site for that, created by GPT. So you know what
Yeah.
some things that I have done with GPT, and people will ask me often in our roundtables or in other environments. They'll say, well, what have you used it for, right? And these are some examples where I've used it where maybe I'm writing a response for me that I'm struggling to creatively write my email response, or
Right.
I'm struggling to write a message that I'm going to use in some way. So I kind of I write it and I know it's not the best. And I would then take that to my assistant, Debbie, and I say, hey, Deb, make this better. And what I
Yeah,
now do is
exactly.
I take that and I plug it into, I write it, I plug it into ChatGPT and I say, how can I say this better? I want to emphasize A, B, and C. And then it gives me a response, and I might have to do some editing, I might not, but it's always so much better. It's always so much better.
Yeah, it's a great drafting tool whenever you're going to write an email, like you're saying. For me personally, I use it to code. It's pretty good at coding. It's also very good at well, really like for instance, the PowerPoint I just did for the Wayfinder event. That's
Yeah.
about 80% written by AI.
Okay.
And
Impressive. Yeah. So if we're going to come see you at the Wayfinder event, we're going to see a presentation that has heavily been influenced by AI.
oh yeah, oh
Yeah.
yeah. And so so if I only put in 20% of the work, I basically got a 5x return on it.
Hey,
It's one way to
Justin's
look at.
taking notes right now. These lawyers are presenting and building things all the time. And I say that's probably the second field that I hear that's under attack, in the public. SoundCloud is, the legal field as far as
Yeah.
legal students using this to get their degree in their writing. And we know Justin didn't do that, that's for sure.
No, not
But
Justin.
no, but it, that's the concern. But I think that's just the new tool, right? You still have to read it, you still have to edit it, you still have to fact check some things for now. But that's how it's being applied in the most basic ways.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in the new skill to be learned in that example, it's prompting. It's just how do you know how to talk to it? Do you know how to get the kind of result you're looking for? And that's
Yeah.
really going to depend on your field. And like I said, I'm going to keep re-emphasizing this. You just got to put time into it and
Yeah.
understand how it's biased or what adjectives it always uses when you want it to draft an email, because it seems to have a certain style. And sometimes and if you just work with it and keep prompting it, you'll eventually get the result you're looking for. But as you continue to use it over time, and I've used it for about a year and a half almost every single day, you just start to get better at the prompting, and the less prompts to get the intended result, the more efficient you become.
Yeah. One of the things that, I mean, for everyone's awareness, you're working on a few projects for us in addition to going to be our speaker at the Wayfinder event. And one of the things that beyond like GPT, where you're just using it to write some messaging, is for the profession to maybe get their head around. We get a lot of the same questions. If I think like employee handbooks for a moment,
Sure.
people come in, what's our handbook say for this, or what about this question or that question, and we might even put someone back and point them back to the handbook. Well, the handbook says, you're allowed
Yeah.
this much absence or this many tardies, or this is how, funeral leave works, or this is how you apply for family medical leave, or here's the form. Those types of things that really create disruption in HR, from a standpoint of I got to stop what I'm doing, then I got to serve my customer, the employee that comes in with the question, and then I got to re-engage back in what I'm doing. Now, some people will say, well, that's exactly HR, but that's also the thing that gets in the way from us being progressive and moving forward. So one of the things you're doing for us is you're taking our some of our databases of information, and you're making that we're designing that and making that available through a GPT format for our member base. So you're just going to interact with GPT and ask it the questions to get the responses in a bot method. What would you encourage HR people to think about in their business as it relates to how they might use the technology to save them that time from disruption or interaction with employees on common questions?
Yeah, I mean, as an HR professional, I mean, just look at your pain points. Look at what like you're saying, the FAQs is a great one, the employee handbook, onboarding,
Yeah.
ongoing training. The list goes on and on. It's like, how many of these interactions are you having with your employees that could be done with AI? And I think that's a great place to start. And that's what we're doing here at AIM with the member feedback survey bot,
Yeah.
basically. And I mean, we're talking thousands of pages of analysis that you can just ask it a normal, like, conversational question, and this is going to give you a nice detailed answer in a few seconds.
Yeah. And that when you get into analysis, I just want to take a pause here. There's some great responses. AI is to HR as cars are to buggy whip. That's quite funny, right? That's a good advancement. A shovel is to grab. Shovel is to grave. Well, that's a little dark. Let's look at some poll results here, and let's get you and or Justin to comment on these. Nick, what can you pull up from our poll results real quick?
Let's go ahead and pull up the how well the AI sniffer is. All right.
Okay.
So we're looking at
All
this.
right.
Yeah, and so we had a range on this from I can always sniff out AI to I don't know. I mean, Phil and Bert could even be AI for all I know. And as you see, we're a little more on that end.
I accept that my intelligence may be artificial. I agree. I understand that. But Bert, I mean, he's he's pure machine. But yeah, so they think it's pretty average to sniff it out. Um, I I I don't know that I think my intelligence to sniff it out is average. I don't know when I can see it.
Yeah, I think they're more
I
leaning towards not being able to tell.
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
this is
there
going
you
to keep going in that direction over time. It's just going to get harder and harder to recognize. Yeah.
yeah. Which is scary and also a little exciting at the same time, right? What else you got, Nick?
So
I
we
can't
also
hear you.
have
Nick.
you educate how have you educated yourself on the use of AI in your role? And happy to report here, 28.6% by watching This Week at Work. So we're doing some
Ah,
good in this realm, and I think a lot of it's having guests like Tyler on and those in the legal field who also are looking out on things to watch out for in practice, right?
yeah, no, and I mean, I'm happy to hear that. That's why we do this program. I mean, Bert and I, Justin, I mean, we're very dedicated to helping educate our audience to, be better business leaders. And so that's a really great response. Um, I like that. And tell us more what you want to learn about, and we'll make sure that we do that. Um, Justin, the second response is experimenting, right?
Yeah.
So one of the more common questions, not Justin, I apologize, Tyler. One of the more common questions that I get on experimenting is, do I need to pay for the upgraded version of GPT, which costs about $20 a month
Right.
right now for that? Any insights on if you are starting, do I need to pay for that?
No, you don't need to pay. I think most users are getting most of its benefit with the unpaid stuff. But if you're someone who wants to generate a lot of AI images, let's say you're in marketing, it's probably worth it. If you're looking for more complex language structure for something creative, that's another reason to upgrade to the 4 or 4.5 turbo. But to answer your question, no, you don't to get going here, you absolutely don't need to pay for anything. And that's what's so amazing about this tool. Remember that old calculator of yours was expensive, right?
Oh
But
yeah,
but this tool is free and it's changing fast every week. That's
yeah.
what's so crazy about AI.
And Justin, if I can ask you a question before the program ends here, when you hear AI and your firm is talking about AI and doing these things, what is there anything in particular that's kind of on that leading edge from a legal standpoint? I know you've talked about some of this with our audience in Indianapolis before, just as it relates to using it from a recruiting bias standpoint. Is that still the primary focus, EEOC, and from a legal protection standpoint, beyond intellectual property protection?
Yeah, absolutely. So the EEOC has actually issued guidance on this very issue. There's no AI made me do it defense. If you use AI, especially in the hiring, promotion type settings, if AI is prone to generating results that result in adverse, discriminatory practices towards certain groups of people, that can pose real significant concerns. And so it may be a useful tool in those areas, but you really need to be thoughtful about the ways that you're using it to ensure that you're not rolling it out in a fashion that's going to be discriminatory.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank you for
absolutely.
that. Thank you
if
for
you
that.
come to the Wayfinder event, I'm going to hit a lot on the different risks and biases and legal troubles that AI will bring, because with every opportunity comes a risk, and just mitigating that is really what we're aiming. We want to teach people how you actually mitigate the risk so you can implement the technology.
Absolutely. So, all right, one homework assignment for everyone. Sometime today, preferably right when you're done with this program so you don't get tied up into something else. Here's what I ask you to do if you haven't done it already. Go find your average job posting that you have posted in the last several months to hire someone. Take that job posting and copy it and then paste it into GPT and just ask it to do one simple thing. Say, write this more creatively, making our organization sound fun and exciting. That's all you have to do. And then copy it in there and hit enter. And then next week, tell me if you liked that job posting better or worse than the first original one. I'd love to hear some feedback. Nick, let's make that part of our program next week at 7:30 Central Time. Until then, Justin, thank you for joining us. Tyler, can't wait to have you on stage at the factory. It's going to be a good event. It's a big stage. It's a lot of fun. We bring some rock and roll atmosphere. It's not your everyday HR learning environment. So come join us and have some fun. Until then, go out and be good to somebody. Take care.
Thank you once again for tuning in to This Week at Work. If you enjoy the show, please share it with your colleagues, forward our invites, share the link, aimea.org/This Week at Work, or follow or subscribe wherever you get your news and entertainment. LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, we're everywhere you are. Don't forget you can be part of the show. Send your questions and comments anytime to info@thisweek.work. We'll see you next week, 7:30 a.m. Central Time, when we discuss what's happening this week at work.